Today we're going to compute square roots on paper using a method invented by Benjamin Franklin. Welcome to Matharium. This is the method that Benjamin Franklin invented. Now it doesn't apply to where gas equals 0. So you take your number you want the square root of, divide it by a gas, any gas except 0. Okay? Add it to your gas, divide by 2, in other words, average what you just did here, and you get a new gas. And then you take your new gas, you divide your number by that, add the new gas, divide by 2, and just keep repeating until you have the number just keeps repeating itself. So for example, I like taking the square root of 200 because I know the answer is 14.14. So I'm going to put a guess in here, and I could put 14.14 if I wanted. I'm going to guess 15 because I know 15 is the wrong answer. Okay? So if you divide 200 by 15, add 15, divide by 2, you get 14.166. Now the reason, this guess, I have experimented a little bit with negative numbers, and it will give you a negative square root. Positive numbers will give you a positive square root. Of course, you can't use 0 because any number divided by 0 is undefined. So let's try this method. I've put these in computers, and I found I could make guess. I could make it like 1, I could make it 0.5, I could make it 1,000,000, and I have a computing background, so the computer did the heavy lifting for me, and it always worked. Now I'm going to be lazy, and I'm going to use a calculator. So let's take 200, and we'll divide it by 15. We'll add 15. And divide by 2. And we've got this number now. So we've got the 14. Let's put that in there. So let's do 200. Obviously, if you had to do this by hand, it would be really annoying. And you'll notice what it's doing. It's taking the average of this. So it's taking the average of these. All right, we just keep going. I believe that is the actual square root. Let's try that again. Let's try to memorize that number, and we're going to see if we get it back. And we do. So we're going to do plus. Because that's the same number, we have the square root. Now I'm going to put it in memory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the actual square root just to prove it. So there you go. That's the same number. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to subtract the 2. There you go. So they're the same number. Okay, so I'll just give you a rough idea why this works. If you happen to guess on the actual square root of number divided by its own square root is its square root. Averaged with its square root is, of course, the square root of number. So somewhere on this graph, we're going to have the square root of number. Now, my lines here are going to be completely arbitrary, okay? But your guess, this and this will be exactly equal okay? But in the real world, your guess will be wrong because it's a guess. Like I did with 15, 200 divided by 15 plus 15. So if your guess is too high, this of course will be too high, but that means this will be too low to be the square root. And same if guess is too low, this will be too low to be the square root, and this will be too high to be the square root. So you're averaging two numbers. One's too high, one's too low. So we average those two numbers. And I'll just put it here. So now we have a new average. I'm going to put it through here. One's going to be too high, one's going to be too low. So we've got this new average. We run this new guess through this formula. It's going to be one's going to be, well, it's actually going to be here because that's the guess. And then we're going to put another one here. And you average them out and it comes really close. And you keep doing this. And eventually you'll end up where it gets narrower and narrower. And you end up reaching the square root of your number. And every time you do it, you'll keep getting the square root back. So if the guess or the next guess matches the previous one, you know you've got your answer. What I like about Benjamin Franklin's method is it's very simple and very ingenious and somewhat intuitive, actually. Not surprised. He was a brilliant man, so we're not surprised at a brilliant solution in an era without calculators. So that is how to compute square root using the way Benjamin Franklin did it. Now, obviously, doing this by hand would be extremely painful if you went to that many decimal places, but for practical use, it's pretty good. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. If you'd like to learn more about square roots and calculating them on paper, take a look at the next video in this series where I show you a method of computing it on square roots on paper, but instead of guesses, it actually gives you the next digit in the answer, so you can go to many decimal places as you wish. That is in the next video.